Hello everyone, I'm Ganesh Kumar Bhaskar. I've secured AAR 7 in the recently concluded civil service exam of 2019. I had taken mathematics as my optional and this was my second attempt. In my first attempt of 2018, I had not cleared the prelims and this time around I've been able to clear all stages of the exam. I've opted for Indian Foreign Service as my first and actually only preference. Last time, one of the major reasons why I could not clear the prelims was that I did not take the preliminary exam seriously. I was under the impression that mains is the main exam, and anyone who's not serious about mains will be eliminated in prelims. But later, I realized that prelims is a whole new game in itself. It requires serious preparation as we do it for mains. So for last prelims, I had hardly dedicated 10 days exclusively for prelims preparation. So I was actually studying world history and ethics about 20 days before the preliminary exam. I had hardly done 10 mocks and that too within a span of 30 minutes for each mock without any analysis, and that too was done in an online mode. And this resulted in me crashing during my actual prelims. I made a number of silly mistakes. For example, there were questions on subsidiary alliance, money bill, which were considered to be very basic, but I still made mistakes in them. I marked the OMR in a wrong way that led to unnecessary negative marks, and finally lost out by scoring 2.5 marks less than the cutoff and wasting one whole year of my preparation. So I would suggest future aspirants to take note of it. In terms of how I rectified it, I gave 1.5 months of full-fledged preparation for the prelims. I gave around 30 odd mocks from 2 different test series. And even then, after each mock, I would give as much time to analyze the mock as I did for writing the mock. I would classify all my attempts into 4 columns. One is the sure shot column, one is guess out of 2, another one is guess out of 3, and fourth is instinctive random guess. So the last column was a surprise for me. So for each column, I would calculate the number of attempts, number of correct questions, number of wrong questions, and finally the total score within each column. So as you know, by the law of probability and the amount of negative scoring given by UPSC, the expected mean in all the first 3 columns are supposed to be positive, and it was so in all my mock tests and in the final exam as well. So my new discovery was in the 4th column, where in any question where I could not eliminate any option, but instinctively felt that a certain option appears to be correct, I would choose it. And I realized that out of 20 questions, 20 mocks where I had used this strategy, 19 of them yielded a net positive score in that last column. So I implemented this strategy in my final exam as well, and I attempted more than 90 questions, and I think I've scored more than what was required for the Indian Foreign Service. So the scores are not out yet. So this strategy worked out for me, and I suggest that you do the same for me. With regard to the resources for prelims, I made sure that I read limited material for prelims, either in terms of static material or the dynamic material. In terms of current affairs, I only read the Hindu and did not read any other newspaper. Even the Hindu was read in a short period of time. I would collect 7 days worth of newspapers on a Saturday and give only 2.5 hours to study the newspaper, and if at all, and make notes very scantily because I knew it would be available in the monthly compilation as well. So only 2.5 hours per week was spent on doing newspapers. Apart from that, I used Vision IAS monthly compilation. I just took the PDF, highlighted on the PDF itself, wrote any notes based on my Google search, and kept that for my prelims current affairs revision. In addition, I used to watch Rajya Sabha TV while having lunch or breakfast at home. In addition, I also used the schemes and organizations PDFs from Shankar IAS, which were also useful for my prelims exam. In addition, there were certain topics that involved map work. For map work, I used Atlas, and I also created maps of my own. So these maps contained dances or festivals of any particular state, rivers, mountains, etc. The rivers and mountains map is something that I just copied from last year topper Mr. Shreyansh Kumat. Apart from that, for everything like for wildlife parks or national parks, I would create a map with several of these, and then I would try to ensure that I was able to recognize the state the national park or wildlife sanctuary belonged to if I could get the name. But I did not try to memorize them. I just made sure that I could recognize them in a multiple choice question. For standard parts for Indian history, I did Spectrum, followed by Tamil Nadu class 12th old textbook. So While reading initially, Tamil Nadu class 12 textbook has a better chronology, so that will help you understand the timeline of how things happened. And then the spectrum, of course, has a lot of details added to it. For ancient and medieval history, I used Tamil Nadu class 11 textbook, the old one. For art and culture, I used the textbook by Nitin Singhania. I did not read the whole book, but I looked at what were the chapters that were high yielding and only focused there. Apart from that, there were sections of art and culture from Tamil Nadu class 11 textbook that I also studied for ancient and medieval. In addition, there was a few points that I picked up from NCERT Fine Arts and wrote it down in my Nitin Singhania book so that I don't have to revise the Fine Arts book. For economics, I did NCERT macroeconomics and the book by Shankar Ganesh. I felt that other popular books like Ramesh Singh are unnecessarily too large, and Shankar Ganesh is a very short book, less than 200 pages, and that is sufficient along with NCERT for economics. In addition, you might want to do budget and economic survey. I just use some coaching center PDF to actually look at points there. Did not spend a lot of time doing it. For geography, I used NCERT class 11th and 12th. In addition, for complex phenomena, for example, like monsoon, etc., that are not very well explained in NCERT, I used Ronald videos on YouTube. For environment, I used Shankar IAS, and then also I made maps for everything. For example, for Ramsar Convention sites, national parks, etc. Like I said earlier, I used a map for everything that needed to be crammed for the exam. And finally, I gave 30 mock tests, and towards the last month, I was almost giving one mock test a day. And another recommendation I would make is that the way UPSC asks questions, twists questions in its exams versus how they do it in coaching centers are different. For example, a lot of coaching centers try to twist the words in the question and try to make it complicated, but I've noticed that UPSC hardly does it ever. So UPSC actually tries to understand if you grasp the concepts. So during the last week, I would recommend that you don't solve any coaching center marks and you simply go through the past 4 or 5 years UPSC prelims paper and solve them again and again so that you get an intuition of what sort of elimination works in the actual UPSC paper and what sort of intuition works in the actual UPSC paper. So that is the mindset with which you should go to the exam. And again, while attempting the exam, I had a specific strategy. I had figured out that doing the questions in several rounds helps. For example, in the first round, I would allocate 40 minutes where I will read each and every question, all the 100 questions in a very superficial way. But I would answer only those questions that I'm sure of. Either I know the answer or I'm able to eliminate all 3 options and get to the right option. So that was my round 1, after which I'll fill the OMR and I do not wait for it towards the end. Then the next round would start where I would eliminate options that I'm very confident about. And then let's say there are 2 options are eliminated and 2 more are left where I'm not able to make any intelligent guesses. Then I would randomly pick one of them. And similarly, I would go ahead in the later round. If I'm able to eliminate just one option, then I would choose any one among the 3. And finally, I would do those instinctive guesses where I have an instinctive feel for the question. And I feel that I'll almost certainly get it right, though I could not eliminate any option. I would go ahead doing that as well. So the last round is actually a risky bet. It depends on how good your preparation is, how good your instincts are. And this is not something that is to be done for the first time in the exam itself. You have to practice it in several marks, and only if you're comfortable doing it, you should do it in the final exam. One more piece of advice. I heard that a lot of exam centers don't have clocks, so make sure you get a watch with you. Else, it will be very difficult for you to manage your time during the programs. So last time I made mistakes in the OMR in the sense that I actually tried to get all the questions right in the beginning and then started filling the OMR towards the end. So, and also I had never practiced filling OMR before the actual prelims. I used to do online tests. So I ended up marking a question that I had actually left that I did not know any answer of. So that led to a negative marking and then mark the subsequent questions wrongly as well. So this led to a lot of loss of actual marks that I should have scored and additionally negative marking. So this time around, I did not give any online tests. So I enrolled for online marks, but I would take the questions, take a printout, print OMR like page, and then actually answer it physically, fill the OMR physically, and then I would enter answers from my OMR into my laptop and then get the right answers. So this might help for everyone else. Let's start with the optional strategy for the mains exam. So my background is that I did BTech in computer science engineering from IIT Kanpur, then did an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So naturally, computer science is not an optional that's available in the exam. So the next natural option would have been management, but I realized that the approach of management in IMA and UPSC is very different. So UPSC focuses on the theoretical aspects, while IIM Ahmedabad was most focused on case studies and solving for practical purposes. So I realized that management study would be something very different for me, and I would have to cover a lot of new ground. In addition, management has not been a very high scoring optional, and ready-made study material or test series is not available as far as I know. So because of which I removed it as an option for me. So the next natural option was mathematics, which is closest to computer science within the optional list. So mathematics had all the advantages that I was looking forward to. So mathematics has certain challenging topics like abstract algebra and fluid mechanics that I had already completed as part of electives and compulsory courses at IIT. So that made maths to be an easier optional for me compared to other candidates. In addition, I had always been good at maths in school and college. Mm. Also, I was bent on doing the preparation from home. So maths is ideal for people who do self preparation because very good study material is available. You don't need coaching for answer writing skills because there is no answer writing here. You just have to write down all the steps and get the right answer. And we have sufficient good amount of test series where you can judge yourself with your competitors. In addition, maths has always been a high scoring optional, so you can be sure that if you have studied the syllabus well, you've solved sufficient amount of questions, you will do well in the exam and you can score really high compared to the topper of any humanities option. So that is why I took mathematics. So just a bit of caveat about mathematics. I would recommend mathematics only for those who are very comfortable with mathematics and have done some amount of mathematics at college level, because so the mathematics option is quite competitive as most of the toppers are from IITs. So if you do not have a very good aptitude with mathematics, it's better to go for some other humanities option. The second caveat is that the syllabus is quite vast. So I had to devote 2/3 of my preparation time for mathematics, while only 1/3 was devoted for general studies and essay. And this will definitely affect your score in general studies and essay. But I was okay with it because I felt I can get like 30-40 marks edge over a humanities person, and even if I lose 10 or 20 marks in GS and essay, I would come out on top. So and I think though the marks are not out, I think that strategy has worked for me. So a new aspirant can think along these lines while making his choice for the option. So now let's start with GS1 preparation. So the sources that I used for all general studies papers are pretty much the same as that I used for prelims. However, the only difference in this case is that for current affairs, I use the same sources, but instead of just highlighting the books, I had created digital notes on Google Docs, Google Sheets, etc., so that they can be revised easily during the final revision. In addition, I also made notes out of the Vision IAS monthly compilation, the Hindu reading, as well as Rajya Sabha TV debates. Let's go to the static part of general studies 1. For culture, I again used the book by Nitin Singhania and Tamil Nadu class 11 history book of old syllabus. So I created short notes of them, hardly 20-25 pages, and I just revised them again and again, and I did not go back to the textbooks once I had made notes for any of the topics in general studies. For modern India, again, I used Spectrum. I created 25-30 pages for notes in A4 size sheet and used them. For post India, I wanted to follow India since independence by Bipin Chandra, but it's a huge book and the syllabus, so the marks allocated to this topic is not much. So I just searched online and got a 20-page notes prepared by some earlier topper, and I just used that for my post India syllabus. For world history, I created notes out of Norman Love book, but I would not recommend that. It's better that you use notes created by someone else because the Norman Love book is huge and the cost benefit ratio is not very much in favor of a candidate reading the book cover to cover. For society, I used the PDFs available with Vision IAS for free. I read a couple of books, NCERT books on society. Then there is the current affairs part that I already mentioned. In addition, for any topic, I would try to do some Google search to get some statistics, government schemes, etc., that can be used as value addition material for final answer writing. For geography, again, I used only 11th, 12th geography NCERT, in addition to using Runal videos on YouTube for understanding purposes. For natural resources part, I found the PMF IAS PDF to be quite exhaustive and a very good source for doing this topic. So the recent past, a lot of questions have not been asked from that place. In addition, I would say that in geography, in recent times, it's mostly current affairs or disaster management based. So focus a lot on the environment portion of current affairs to do well in GS1 geography. Let's move on to GS paper 2. Here, again, the material is very similar. I used Lakshmikant for the initial few topics that were theoretical in nature. After that, there are some Vision IAS PDFs for each line of the syllabus that I also used for making my notes. Of course, current affairs, the same material that I had talked about initially. Apart from this, I used 3 volumes of books, Model Questions and Answers by Shubhra Ranjan. So I found the question answer pattern in that book to be very useful for GS2. Then there are a few Niti Aayog documents like Strategy for New India at 75. And there are certain schemes, state government schemes specified in the Niti Aayog website that can be used as case study while giving answers for GS2 welfare schemes section. In addition, I used to Google how historically the health policy, education policy, etc., and the PDS policy has evolved over the period of time, so that I have some historical data points to give. In addition, I also created a sheet of data points for education, health, agriculture, etc., that can be used for value addition. After that, let's move on to General Studies paper 3. So the major document that I used here was the published GS3 notes of Mr. Vikas Sangwan, who's an IPS officer of 2019 batch, so 2017 batch. So this is sort of an outdated document, but a lot of things, resources that he has given might be very useful. So the only change is that you might want to change some data and facts that are more current. Otherwise, the notes are pretty excellent for coverage. I also used Niti Aayog documents, Strategy for New India at 75, 3-year action plan documents. Then there are Vision IAS PDFs on specific topics that were also used for making notes. I used Vajiram notes for science and technology. I made notes out of the Shankar IAS book for environment. I used the book called Challenges to Indian Security by Tata McGraw-Hill by an IPS officer. So this book also covers the internal security and disaster management. And then finally, current affairs, resources that I mentioned earlier. So now the third part is General Studies 4. This was the paper where I tried to concentrate a bit more because I knew I don't have enough time to do GS well. So GS4 has a very small syllabus and a predictable syllabus. So I tried to put in more effort for GS4 so that it's more highly scored. So basically I used 2 books for this. One is Lexicon. The second one is Decode Ethics by Mr. Mudit Jain, who's an IRS officer. So the second book can also help you in making diagrams in your ethics paper that I try to follow as much as possible. So these 2 books form the foundation of the theory for GS4 paper. So I would put up definitions from this book, look at diagrams from this book, pull out examples of bureaucrats and leaders who have done certain good things for society. And these examples were also used. Apart from this, I also did some Google search to figure out ethical actions of leaders internationally in India by bureaucrats as well, that can be highlighted in the examples. I also created examples from my own life that can be used for answers. For example, for integrity, non-partisanship, I created examples of my own life, people who I've seen in my own life, as well as set of leaders, so that in every 10 mark or 15 mark questions, I have at least 2 examples, couple of definitions, and a few good points to write in the part section A of the GS4 ethics paper. For the case study part, I actually followed a video by Mr. Siddharth Jain, who's an IAS officer of 2016 batch. So he had uploaded a video on Vision IAS, I think, where he covered the case studies right from the beginning to the year 2018. So he had solved all the case studies in a very holistic manner. So I actually made notes out of the whole video and tried to use a similar approach for all the case studies. So you will notice that if you solve 6 years past year papers of GS4 case studies, most of the concepts have already been covered. So anything in future will be a rehash of the concept that were covered in the case study earlier. So I would recommend that all candidates have a detailed ideal write-up of all the case studies done in the previous years. And once that is memorized in a good way, like you remember all the fundamental rights, DPSP articles, laws like female sexual harassment laws and other maintenance of older persons laws, names of a few NGOs, sections that can be applied for land allocation, or what section of CRPC can be used for implementing certain prohibitory orders, etc. So memorize all these details and use them in the case study. So adding all these additional details will help you appear more knowledgeable to the examiner and will add more value answer and will probably help you get better marks. So I followed Mr. Siddharth Jain's strategy completely. In addition, always do some online search and use current affairs incidents. For example, any good action by a bureaucrat that came up in the past 1 year, or any bad action by a bureaucrat. For example, a bureaucrat, an IPS officer who cheated in the exam is a very good example to say that having good intelligence does not lead to good ethics, etc. So try to make the essay paper, try to make the ethics paper as practical as possible and less theoretical as possible. However, do use the philosophical principles in the case studies as well. So overall, for paper 1, 2, 3, and 4, I tried to emulate the answer writing pattern of Mr. Anudeep Gurishetty, who's the rank 1 in 2017 exam. So I found his answer writing skill to be very approachable for an engineer. It's not very flowery, but it covers all aspects in a point-wise manner, and he scored really good marks in the exam. So I tried to follow him, but I could not completely do justice because I had very little time. From the point of view of mock tests, I tried to give the physical marks through the Vision Abhyas mock tests, and since I had paucity of time, I was able to do only 2 mock tests for essay. 2 mock tests for GS1, 2 mock tests for GS4, and only 1 mock for GS2 and 3. I would say this number is extremely low for a serious aspirant. I had to do this because I had very little time, but I would recommend that candidates do it much more frequently. One more piece of advice: writing 1 mock test in a day will give you a wrong idea about your ability. In the actual exam, you will have to write 4 GS papers back to back. So towards the end of the exam, I would recommend students that they write 2 GS papers in 1 day and 2 GS papers right in the next day, so that during the 4th paper you will really feel your energy levels going down, your hands shaking, and your concentration breaking. So you should actually have experienced this couple of times before the final exam, so that during the final exam it becomes a cakewalk and you don't have any surprises or any fatigue, and you do your best. So now coming on to answer writing strategy during the final paper. Now moving on to the real answer writing part during the actual exam. So during my mock test, I was not able to complete all the 20 questions in a justifiable way, and I realized that doing all the 20 questions is very necessary to actually get a good score in general studies. So during the exam, I realized that I was very slow during the first 1 hour, and I was very fast during the third hour. So the first 1 hour was where I was taking up a lot of time. So I decided that I have to push myself to make the first 1 hour very productive. So this is the strategy that I followed. For every paper, I had one favorite topic. For example, for GS1, it was world history. For GS2, it was international relations, and for GS3, it was internal security. So I would try to pick at least 5 questions from these topics, and I would try to do about 5 15 markers and 2 10 markers during the first 1 hour, and I'll push myself hard to do this. And once I've achieved this target, and this is easy because you don't have to think a lot in a subject that you are prepared with. Once this target is achieved during the 1 hour, so this motivation carries you over to the second hour as well. And finally, during the third hour, anyway, every candidate is rushing and you are already at your topmost speed, and you're sure to complete the paper in 3 hours that are allocated to you. And I did this, and it worked very well for me. In addition, since I did not have a lot of deep knowledge about GS because of my short preparation time, I ensured that I did a few basics right. I covered all the 20 questions no matter what. There were questions where I did not have a lot of idea of the question, but I wrote what I knew, what was relevant to the question. So I did not leave a single question. I filled all the 2 pages for a 10 marker and all the 3 pages for a 15 marker. I also made sure that for every question I started it with the definition, I started it with some piece of data or a report. It could be some index, international index that shows India's position in a particular way to add value, and I added India map and world map in all my answers, in most of the answers where it was possible. So practicing India map and world map before going to the exam is critical, so that you don't take a lot of time and your map is legible. So I was in a similar position. So here is a tip for you. So I feel that general studies actually does not need very good answer writing skills that a humanities student possesses. If you look at Mr. Anudeep's answer sheets, you will realize that none of his, so he has written all of his answers in a point-wise format. At least almost 90% of his answers are in a point-wise format, where each point does not have more than 2 lines. So that means you don't have to have a very good structure or flowery language to do it. You just need a few keywords. You need to have the content that you can put in point format. So if you have the content, writing it in a 2-line point format is not difficult. So the second option is structuring the question. So when you look at a question, generally a GS question has 2 or 3 subparts. So looking at the question, figuring out the subparts, writing the answers to them separately. For example, a question could ask you for a definition followed by advantages followed by disadvantages. So the first part of your answer could be the definition with some examples, or maybe a map, then or an example, then followed by answer to the advantages part. You say advantages, and then you make a box out of it, and then write 4 or 5 points. Then you go to the disadvantages, make a box over disadvantages, and then write 4 or 5 points. So this makes the structure of the answer very easy for an engineer to do, because it's sort of like an algorithm that we use for every single question. It also makes the life easy for an examiner, because he can give you marks accordingly. And this, if once you start practicing, use initial 30 to 40 seconds for actually structuring the answer. And once you're structured and once you know the content, writing the answer is very easy. So even now, I wouldn't say my essay writing skills are extremely great, but general studies did not come in the way, because it does not actually really require very good literature sort of like skills for answering. Regarding timing for each question, I used to have a fixed time that I had allocated for a 10 marker or a 15 marker. And I would try to be within that region. For example, for any question, I would spend between 6 to 9 marks, depending on whether it's a 10 marker or 15 marker. And I try never to overshoot this. Having said this, there might be cases where you don't know the answer to a certain question. You have to make up the answer creatively in the exam. So that might take a little bit more time. But to do that, make sure that for the rest of the questions, you don't overshoot, and you use the time in the final remaining few minutes to actually make up creative answers. For example, there was a question on Cyberdome. So I did not actually know what Cyberdome was while giving the exam, but since I could reasonably guess that it involves some amount of cybersecurity, and since it's a dome, it might be something that interrupts data that comes in or goes out of a particular location or a particular server. So I used that as an intuition, and I wrote answer. So here, when you write a made-up answer, it does not mean you write fake answer or you just write things you do not know of. This is a reasonable cybersecurity related question. So though I did not answer the Cyberdome thing directly, I wrote principles that are relevant to cybersecurity. So I'm pretty sure that these principles are universal and they apply for Cyberdome as well. But at the same time, you're not leaving the question. Though you might not get full marks for this question, you might get some 2 or 3 marks, and these marks might end up making a difference in the service that you get or a part of the team. And I think this approach will help most of the students. Preparing for the interview, I think there are only 2 parts to it. One is filling the DAF, and the second one is actually giving mock interviews, and finally going and giving the final interview. So as far as filling the DAF is concerned, most of the things are already determined for us. There are very few things like prizes, hobbies, etc. that make sense for us, and then there is the service preference. So regarding the hobbies prizes part, so there are students who have a lot of things to write about, and there are students who have very few things to write about. So for students who have very few things to write about, I think don't worry too much. It is just a starting talking point that can initiate conversation, but that does not determine your marks. So no need to worry about it. Try to give any achievement. Don't leave it blank though. I think everyone has some achievement, maybe at the school level or anything. So write something that can initiate a discussion, and that will be the syllabus for your interview. For those who have too many accomplishments, I would say narrow it down to 2. So I made sure that for every entry, I just gave two entries that can attract the attention of the interviewer. So there is a reason for this. If you write too many entries, you will realize that you have very little time to prepare for them, and you might be caught off guard. Also, if you write 3 or 4 entries, the interviewer might just get confused and might ask you questions about an option that's not very interesting, or might not portray the best parts of your personality. So just opting for 2 will actually attract the interviewer towards a particular point, and they'll ask you questions on a topic that you want them to ask you. So that is what I did. And regarding hobbies and interests, So I actually did not have very interesting hobbies or interests, just like any normal Indian person. So I just wrote jogging, having which is what everyone does and does not attract a lot of questions. And then second one was following trends in information technology. That made sense because anyway I was a engineering student. Then I worked as a product manager post my MBA. So that was something I did as a part of my profession. So yeah, so even people who don't have hobbies or interests, don't leave it blank, but don't boast about something that you do not know of. Write about something that might not be impressive, but something that you're not bluffing about. So, and finally, the interviewers did not ask me any question on these hobbies or interests because they were sort of mundane, but I was also not caught up for writing something that I bluffed about. That is it about the hobbies and prices section. Then going on to service and cadre preference. So I think this is a place where a lot of candidates fall into hearsay. They go with the herd and fill options in a way that everyone else fills, though their personality, their interests, their temperament might be very different. In my case, I knew even beforehand that I would opt only for foreign service because that is what interested me. I gave this exam to join foreign service. In fact, I opted out of all the 23 other services. So foreign service was option one. I had opted out of everything else, including IAS, IPS, IRS. This was because I had clearly decided that I would join only IFS, and in case I don't make it to IFS, I would go back to a product management role in private sector. So have your career interests fixed before you start giving for the exam, or even if you have not done so, I would suggest that during the phase between the mains and filling the gap, go through the profiles, listen to people who have already working there to see what profile fits your own personality and what would make you happy, instead of seeing what is prestigious for other candidates. And also have a backup plan. For example, you might be a person who's very outgoing, who may be doing marketing, and you might feel that you want to serve the country in an outgoing fashion by joining IAS or IPS, but you might not have the rank to do so, and you might end up in maybe an auditing or account service, which is basically a desk job. So make a choice beforehand that in case you don't make it to your preferred services, will you join any service that you get, or are you going to not join the civil service and then go ahead for a career in private sector that might be more suited to your own personality and will keep you happy over the next 30 years. Don't just follow a career because it's prestigious or because you spend 2 years preparing for the exam does not mean you get to any job that the exam gives you. So this is a 30-year career, and you have sacrificing 2 years is just a sunk cost. You don't have to sacrifice 30 years of your career for 2 years of UPSC preparation. Varied feedback. So most of the marks were along the lines that I had expected. Since I had opted only for foreign service, I had already expected that I'll be grilled in that topic. Foreign service and international affairs were something that were prime focus of my interviews during all the 3 mocks as well as during the final interview, which is as expected. And then one more feedback that I got from a mock was that so my approach to the interview felt more corporate culture-ish rather than having the culture of a government sector. So I had worked in a startup post my MBA, so where we went in jeans or in shorts, right? And then even the senior most person or a vice president was called by his first name. There was hardly any hierarchy. It was a flat structure. While a government setup is very different. So they pointed out that I did not use the word sir a lot. So whenever they asked me a question, I gave them a direct answer, and I was very upfront in terms of what my views were. So they told me that maybe I would try to be a little balanced, maybe add more sir in the before answering a question, maybe add more sir to make sure that I don't appear rude. And then there was also a feedback that generally a candidate with my educational background, that I went to IIT, IIM, then went to a startup, there might be a feeling that I might not be very compassionate towards weaker sections of the society. So maybe they told me that showing that in your answers during the interview might help assuage the certain doubts that the interview board might have. So I mean I don't know how far I took care of these things in the interview, but having this sort of feedback helped me understand my own personality and project it in a better manner. So now moving on to the actual interview. So it started with the chairman asking me what my choices were. I told him it was IFS. Then he said, what are the other choices? I said I did not. So he gave me a shocked look. So that sort of unnerved me. That should not have, because I felt as if I had committed a crime, which it was not, because it was just a career option. And then there were a few grilling questions on why I opted for IFS and why not IAS. So I my place of birth is a place called Ramanathapuram in Tamil Nadu. This is considered a backward district in that state. So one member asked me that you coming from being born in Ramanathapuram, don't you want to go to IAS in Tamil Nadu, Kadar, and do well for people in Ramanathapuram? So I sort of told him that so all services serve, and this meets my personality. And again, there are a lot of laborers from Ramanathapuram district who go to Middle East and face abuses. So maybe if I'm an IFS officer there, I could help, in addition to helping people from my own district, I would be able to represent the whole country and protect labor from all over India. So I tried to justify them, but they asked me repeated questions, grilling me on my choice of career, and I gave them answers to the best of my abilities. And so towards the end, after all the grilling happened, so I smiled, they smiled as well. I don't know how the interview went. And apart from that, there were questions. So I had an MBA. So the chairman of the board also was a management professor. So he asked me a few accounting questions. I was able to answer some technical aspects of it. I was not able to answer some of them, which were too advanced for an MBA. And I told them directly that I do not know the answers to them. And then there were questions on banking NPAs, etc. There were questions on India's defense import strategy. There were questions on a few social schemes, etc. So most of the interview was along the predicted lines. There were no bouncers per se in the interview. So it went along fine. So it was not a very great interview, not a very bad interview. So it went as it was expected. I wanted to share some advice with respect to failure in this exam to candidates who are already appearing for it this year, or candidates who are planning to quit their jobs to get into civil service exam for full prep. So in my case, so I did not want to take risk right after my MBA, because civil service exam does not only depend on hard work, but also a little bit on luck, because the exam is very subjective in all three stages. So I actually decided to work and prepare alongside. So I actually worked for 2 years after my MBA in product management role in a startup. So my first attempt, I worked, and it was only 3.5 months before the 2019 attempts prelims that I quit my job, came home, and did a full-fledged preparation. So by that time, I had decided that either it was IFS or a product management role. And since I had 2 years of a good product management experience, even if I don't make it to foreign service, I can go back to a career. My own boss had told me that in case I don't make it, I was always free to join. So in that way, I already had the educational qualifications and work experience to have a backup in case I don't make it. So I would recommend this to everyone. So for example, there are a lot of people who want to take humanities course because they want to take a particular optional. In that case, I would say that it's, in case you have a middle class background like I do, it's probably better to do a professional course so that you have a backup to come up to. Even if you don't need it, during the course of preparation, you will come across times when it is very stressful, you're concerned about your future. Having that backup will give you the confidence to face this exam in a very brave manner, and that counts for a lot, especially during the exam day when you're under a lot of pressure and during the interview. So that is my my advice would be, before quitting the job or jumping into this preparation, have a clear idea of what you want out of this exam. What will you do if you don't make it through this exam? What are the maximum number of attempts that you give for this exam? And what will you do if you don't get into your preferred services? So having all this thought out before plunging into the preparation will give you a very clear pathway, and it will help you take decisions. Because once you plunge into this exam, it's more like an addiction, and you will be very emotionally attached because you have done a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work. You always feel the next attempt is when it will come around. And I don't feel that giving 9 or 10 attempts and putting your life on hold is worth it, because I think everyone is not going to make it to civil services, and there are very good professions outside civil services where you will be very happy. I think candidate achieving his or her own goals is more important than actually clearing this exam. So this exam is one way to happiness. If you don't make it, you figure out another way. Don't be stuck up in this exam and in this cycle forever and ever. So I would also like to share some ideas on coaching for UPSC exam. So in my case, I have never been to Old Rajendra Nagar. I have never been to any classroom coaching for this preparation from the beginning. Initially, I was working, so I did not have any time to do coaching as well. And finally, I did not feel that this exam required coaching for me. And that's a very personal question. So this is my opinion on everything. For example, in an optional, it depends. I took mathematics, which has very well written books, which does not require any answer writing skills from coaching center. So it's eminently doable using using self-study. And I think this applies for engineering and other science options as well. For example, if I was an engineer who had taken English literature as an optional, maybe I would have required coaching. So the choice of your optional and your comfort level with that optional matters a lot. And also it depends on the quality of coaching. If there is no good quality coaching, there is no point in going to coaching for the sake of going to coaching. So this is what is for optional. And then for general studies, I feel that for a reasonably good student, someone who has reasonably given attention to social studies in school, and reasonably aware, like someone who reads magazines or newspapers, not frequently, but reasonably frequently, then that person need not join coaching for understanding concepts. So all the concepts that are covered in general studies papers are like school level topics that are not very complex. Maybe a little bit of geography and economics might be complex, but very good YouTube videos exist to do so. And you will save a lot of time and money doing general studies by yourself, doing self-study. And I don't think it's very difficult to do general studies on my own. So one place where you might require some guidance is selection of material, your strategy for preparing notes, etc. And finally, your answer writing. Selection of materials and strategy can be learned from blogs. I personally followed Anudeep sir's blog to understand the sources and strategy. So I would recommend that other students do the same. But for answer writing skills, it depends. So if someone does not feel very confident with their answer writing skills, I think it would help to go to a good coaching teacher who can help you with that. In my case, I did not even have time to do answer writing skills. I wrote 1 or 2 mocks for each topic, and I did reasonably well in the mock. So I got reasonably good scores in my mock test. So I felt my answer writing skills were good enough, and I did not require coaching. And that is how I used coaching for my preparation. So in addition, so I actually used a lot of online mock tests, both for prelims as well as for mains. I did go to physically to a coaching center for giving interview mocks. I gave 3 mocks physically because online mocks are not as good for assessing your personality, because your body expressions, the way you sit, the way you do your gestures is important. So for your final interview mocks, I would recommend that you physically go to a coaching center and give mocks. And most of these mocks are free, so there is no element of time or money constraint. So in addition, you can always use coaching study material as well. So doing self-study does not mean going from basic books. So I used coaching study material for my maths option in addition to books. So that option is also open. So there are Xerox shops that give you material in a very cheap manner, or you can also contact coaching centers to get this study material. So I would also like to share the reason why I opted for IFS and the whole reason for having a certain option service preference, or also why I came into civil service itself. So till my MBA, I did not seriously think of joining civil services. It was during the second year of MBA that I realized that the conventional careers that emerge out of these schools were not what I was looking forward to. So it was then that I started looking for a career in civil services, because they offer the best management jobs in the country. Even then, I was not sure of what service to take. At this point, an IAS officer who was from our own institute, Mr. Karthikeya Mishra, came to our institute and talked about his own decisions. So he was in the exact same spot that I was in. So he had done his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. He went to New York to do investment banking. He did it for a time, and then he realized that is not what he wanted to do. Came back to India, quit his job, and then gave the exam and went into IAS. So he sort of gave his own reasons for why an MBA student from IMA might enjoy being a civil servant, and that sort of resonated with me, and that crystallized the reason why I want to join the civil service. Even after doing that, I did a detailed research of what each career entails. So I read a bunch of books of senior diplomats, whether it be IAS officers, IFS officers, IPS officers, etc. And finally, I realized that my interest lay in international relations, and my temperament sort of suits the job profile of Indian Foreign Service. So I decided that I wanted to join Indian Foreign Service. In addition, my parents suggested that simply jumping from one career option to another is not a very good option. So maybe do a job and prepare alongside, and even after which, if you feel civil service is for you, then please go ahead and prepare. So I followed my father's advice. I joined a startup that was highly recommended by a friend of mine. I worked as a product manager and enjoyed that experience immensely. I learned a lot. So it was here that I decided that I will leave this job only for Indian Foreign Service. If I don't make it to Foreign Service, I would actually prefer to come back to a product management. So trying out different career options also helps. So previously, I had also interned with McKinsey, the major management consulting firm. So that experience also helped me evaluate my career options well. And I decided I did not want to do management consulting as a long-term career. So exploring different options and then making an informed choice on your service preferences or even joining civil services will give you clarity of purpose in terms of preparing for the exam. I would also like to thank DKT for bringing out Toppers videos. So I myself have benefited from it. In fact, for my mathematics optional, I followed the videos of Mr. Varun Reddy, who was actually ranked 7 last year and who also had mathematics optional. And I followed his advice regarding summary sheets, the way of attempting test series, etc. And I believe that that advice has helped me immensely in being rank 1 in this year's exam, rank 7 in this year's exam, and that too with mathematics. So as a concluding remark, I would say civil services is an amazing career option, but it's also a very risky option in terms of getting in. So I would suggest that you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, where you want to do, and everything regarding civil services preparation before plunging into this. So I would suggest that all the aspirants make a very informed decision in terms of whether their choice of joining civil service or preparation for civil services. Make a very good informed decision so that you don't regret it later and you have a very happy career, whether in civil services or anywhere else, and you serve the country to the best of your abilities.